life will be like.
Father's Day is on Sunday, and this father has lost his whole entire family.
Crash in Brampton, offering prayers, bringing flowers, struggling to comprehend the deaths of a mother and her 3 young daughters. Family, friends, and a community continue to mourn a senseless loss in Peel Region. Tonight, we're learning more about the victims and what happened at that intersection at Torbram Road and Countryside Drive. Angelina King is live at the scene for us tonight. Angelina, video believed to be one of the cars involved in the crash is circulating on social media.
Yes, a lot of people have seen this video by now, and in it, it appears that the same vehicle was involved in an incident in Caledon on Tuesday. That's what the man who posted the video says. He also says that he alerted OPP because it appeared at one point the man was passed out behind the wheel. And the mayor of Brampton also shared that video on social media today, saying that the man was driving with a prohibited license. He didn't have insurance, and he's previously been charged with impaired driving. CBC wasn't able to independently verify those details, but we do know that police are looking into the footage. The person who posted this video says it was taken in Caledon 2 days before yesterday's crash in Brampton. It shows a blue Infiniti lurching through an intersection, then mounting the curb while people try to stop it. Then it reverses and speeds away. The man who posted it says he tried getting the driver to stop, who was passed out and almost hit someone.
A complete disregard for human life and is a danger to our community.
Brampton's mayor shared the video online and says the 20-year-old man was driving with a prohibited license and no insurance. He says he's previously faced charges, including impaired driving. CBC has not independently verified those details.
Selfish, reckless. This is an example of an individual that is frankly scum.
The OPP says it's investigating after the incident was reported on Tuesday. Peel Regional Police say they're also aware of the video, but haven't confirmed if it's part of their investigation into yesterday's crash that killed Carolina Chisulo and her 3 daughters, Clara, Liliana, and Mila. This video from a doorbell camera shows the car driving fast. The homeowner says the vehicle was being followed by a police car. Seconds later, the crash. The SIU says a Peel police officer spotted a blue Infiniti traveling eastbound on Countryside Drive shortly after noon yesterday. Moments later, the car slammed into Chisulo's SUV, sending it crashing into a light pole and leaving a community to mourn.
It's devastating, and we just live close by, and we come by here all the time.
I feel sick to my stomach. I couldn't sleep last night.
Masim Saeed tended to the man in the Infiniti.
He was just screaming this whole time, yeah. He was in pain. I can definitely see that he was in pain.
Brampton's mayor says the man driving the blue Infiniti suffered a broken leg. He's in hospital listed in serious condition. The SIU is now looking into the exact involvement of police, and Peel's police chief says that an overwhelming amount of information is coming in. He's asking the SIU to complete this investigation quickly. He also says it's expected that charges will be laid in the crash. Maribel?
Angelina, thank you for this. The Dufferin-Peel Catholic School Board has confirmed Carolina Chisulo was a grade 4 teacher at St. Isaac Jogues Catholic Elementary School in Brampton. As Talia Ricci reports, she was loved by her students and the community.
As a teacher, Carolina Chisulo's impact was widespread.
I love her because she's so outgoing. She's so she's just like the best. I can't even describe it.
12-year-old Bhavana Tony visited the scene of yesterday's crash with a note for one of her favorite teachers and a teddy bear for the children. She remembered meeting 2 of Chisulo's young daughters.
One time she brought them for a whole day so we could have fun time with them. I think they were so playful. They were kind just like her. And I had a feeling when they would grow up, there will be another her.
The community is still reeling over the loss of Chisulo and her 3 children, 6-year-old Clara, 4-year-old Liliana, and Mila, who is just 1. Students tell us she was still on maternity leave from her teaching job at St. Isaac Jogues Catholic Elementary School, where the flag was half-mast today.
Do you remember her, Ray? She was just a very lovely person. Very lovely.
A GoFundMe page started by a family friend aims to help the father left behind.
I was at their wedding a number of years ago, some family functions and celebrations and that kind of stuff. Always, like, both of them were super quiet, super friendly, sweet. The whole family is. Like, you couldn't say a bad word about any of them.
The tragedy struck a chord with many who don't know the family personally, but feel the weight of the loss.
Father's Day is on Sunday, and this father has lost his whole entire family. He's lost his kids.
I can sleep. I mean, I feel sick to my stomach.
Bhavana Tony says she'll never forget what Chisulo said to her class before she took time off to get a surgery a couple of years ago.
She said that if she doesn't come out, that we should always believe in ourselves and that we should keep on going and we should always do what we wanted to do and never give up. I made her a letter saying that I would always remember her and that we would always love her and that she would never ever be forgotten.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Brampton.
One person is dead after a shooting in Corso Italia earlier today. We'll take you to the scene for the very latest, coming up. The Ford government has revealed its framework for what school could look like in Ontario this fall. The plan lays out a range of options for in-class and remote learning, and it leaves decisions up to local school boards. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the story.
When school resumes in this province in September, it will almost certainly not look like this. COVID-19 will bring changes to Ontario classrooms, but the details could differ from one school board to the next.
We simply can't provide a blanket solution for the whole province. Instead, we need to provide school boards the tools and the guidelines to get the kids back in the classroom.
The province wants boards to prepare for 3 different scenarios: a full-fledged return to class with enhanced health and safety measures, full-time remote learning, entirely online at home, or a hybrid, with kids spending half their days at home and half at school. Boards could shift between models as the risk from the virus changes. Starting off in September, the education minister says the hybrid is the most likely.
While boards will have plans in place for all 3 scenarios, I expect that all Ontario students will enter into a cautious adaptive delivery model.
What would that look like? Students would come to school on alternating days or weeks. There'd be no more than 15 kids in a classroom at once, and when not in class, they'd learn online. There's also a promise that all parents will have an option.
If you don't feel comfortable, if you're worried about your child returning to school, we'll keep at-home learning available for your child.
There's been much criticism of the quality of online instruction so far during the pandemic. The government is promising more support for teachers, but no specifics just yet. Today, the government also announced its per-student funding for this coming school year. It's an increase of 2%.
The Minister of Education has a lot to answer for. It is unacceptable that we aren't seeing an investment, a significant investment in new staff to support students.
The final decisions on resuming school won't be made until August. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Parents, students, and educators are mixed in their reaction to the school reopening plan. Parts of the plan are welcomed, but concerns remain. Lisa Shing has more on that.
Are you happy going to school in September?
Yes. 4-year-old Marilee Akong will be starting school in Brampton for the first time this fall. But what school will look like is still up in the air. For now, her dad is open to the province's options.
It will depend on the situations and whatever other guidelines the school boards have in place. We'll have to evaluate, see what is best. Is she safe enough? Is she secured enough for them?
Frances Kim, who juggled working from home and taking care of her 2 young kids when the pandemic started, says she's hoping her children's school in Woodbridge will stagger their return.
If we're taking that approach for most organizations or companies, similar to my own, then I think that would be a natural transition for our kids.
As the province announced, each school board should prepare for a variety of scenarios. Unions representing teachers say they applaud the flexibility, but
mostly what it does is kick over to school board employers the responsibility for coming up with detailed implementation plans.
Where is the financial support for what's going to happen in September, leading up to September and when schools reopen?
unions have requested additional funding and a plan to accommodate students whose parents work in high-risk settings like the health sector and students and teachers who are immunocompromised. The province says it's putting $4 million towards cleaning and sanitization. Now, we reached out to various school boards in the GTA who said it was too early to comment on the province's announcement and that they're in the middle of trying to come up with a plan for September. Lisa Sheng, CBC News, Toronto.
Residents of Halton, York, and Durham regions are now able to hit their local patios. Shopping malls, hair salons, and outdoor dining are also now allowed in those areas under Stage 2 of the province's reopening plan, while Toronto, Peel Region, and Windsor-Essex remain on hold. Linda Ward hit the historic downtown core in Oakville, where the party started early this morning.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Patio season's open in Oakville, and Mayor Rob Burton didn't waste any time. He, along with his council colleagues, hit the patio at midnight as soon as the province lifted their restrictions.
Entering phase 2 is a really important moment for our community because we worked really hard at flattening the curve. When you work really hard for something and you achieve the goals, it always feels good to get what you were promised.
Patio pints must be sipped 2 meters apart. Malls can open now too, and so can hair salons.
Oh, I was bored out of my mind, and I can't wait.
I feel like Santa Claus calling people. I've never heard people being so excited and happy to get a phone call in my life.
It's like Christmas at Chevello Salon in downtown Oakville, but the gifts are new haircuts. They're booked up, but operating at 50% capacity and taking extra precautions.
So we're doing every other station. They've got a little bit of extended time to do their appointments so they can clean and sanitize.
Oh my God, it's heaven. You don't know what you've missed until you've been without it for a while.
It's been too long for Michael Debick.
It's back to some form of normalcy. It feels civil to be able to serve people.
And it's been a struggle. He's had to set up a new patio to serve people outside. And with Toronto, Windsor, and Peel region yet to reopen, his other 2 downtown restaurants remain closed.
There's a lot of emotions that come into play there. I think we may get to the point where the cure was worse than the disease with this.
The city spoke about the timeline for Toronto's reopening this afternoon.
And I really believe we're almost there. Someone once said that patience was bitter, but that the results were sweet. And I feel something sweet coming our way.
The Toronto numbers are headed in the right direction, with fewer than 100 new cases per day. So many are crossing their fingers that the remaining regions will reopen next Friday. After all, it's hard to watch your neighbors having fun when you're not invited to the party. Linda Ward, CBC News, Oakville.
And Colette's here with our check of the weather. Boy, whether you're allowed on a patio or not, it is patio weather out there today.
Oh boy, anything I know to get a little bit of relief. The heat has been incredible. But then not only that, we're seeing the lake breeze convergence causing some active weather as well. So we've got lots of not only severe thunderstorm watches, the areas you see in yellow, but in red where we have some warnings. I'll show you the radar and that kind of illustrates better where we have some of these storms that have popped up. So where between the lakes, you get that breeze coming together, and with this daytime heating, and we know we have lots of that, that's where we see these cells. But because they don't move that much, it means locally these areas see a lot of rainfall, and we do get into some issues with flooding being a concern, also some strong wind gusts and small hail. There's that risk too. Now the other thing though with these is that when the sun goes down as we get towards 9 o'clock or into the later evening hours, they start to dissipate here because they don't have that energy anymore. So a little bit later, these are going to start to weaken. Now tomorrow, we may see those popping up again. The other thing to note is with this heat, we go into a heat warning for tomorrow for not only Saturday, but for Sunday, and it could get extended into Monday as well because the humidity, it went up a little bit today. It goes up a little bit more. So this is for the city, for the GTA, all around the Golden Horseshoe. Our current temperatures, you see those, mark them still at 30 degrees. The humidex values are creeping up. They'll be going up closer towards 40, though, as we get into the weekend. Overnight tonight, even our lows are close to 20 degrees. Tomorrow afternoon, Maribel, 30, but feeling like 36 or higher.
Okay, and we'll check in with you a bit later for more on that. Thanks, Colette.
Sounds good.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
A man is dead after being gunned down in Toronto's Corso Italia neighborhood. Our Farah Morali is live tonight at the scene. Farah, what's happening there now?
Well, Maribel, just moments ago, a police tow truck arrived to remove this vehicle that's been at the center of this investigation, this white GMC. It is there where police say the shooting happened. It's been parked here since this morning, which is when the shooting happened. And as you can see, despite that it happened so many hours ago, there is still a heavy police presence. You can see some members of forensics are taking another look at the car. As it's being driven away, police are calling this a targeted shooting. They're going as far as to say that they believe the suspects were waiting and watching from a side street for the victim to get back to his car, and that's where they believe he was ultimately shot. Here's what we know about the series of events. Police were called here at around 11:40 this morning. When they got here, they found this white GM parked on the north side of the street, multiple shell casings, 14 they're saying, broken glass, and what police believe happened was one of the suspects approached this vehicle from the driver's side and shot this man at close range. Take a listen. One shooter was lying in wait on a side street, and when our victim got into his vehicle, the suspect shooter shot several rounds at our victim and then fled in a vehicle. The victim died on scene, but this afternoon, surveillance video was shared on social media, which appears to show the incident. We've confirmed it was taken from a business across the street. It appears to show two people running towards a white vehicle. One goes to the driver's side, the other goes to the passenger. The person in the dark-colored hoodie then approaches the driver's side while the other runs away. And a short time later, the other person is seen running away. Now, keep in mind, Maribel, what time of day this all happened. It was just before noon on a stretch of Corso Italia that's typically really busy. Most of the people we spoke to couldn't even believe that this was actually a shooting at first.
First, I wasn't sure if it was shots. It seemed to me like it was when you're driving a truck and something heavy falls off a truck, it was that sound. But when I heard pa, 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 I know it was a shot.
Actually, right there in that black car, unloading. After those 9 shots, the gentleman was there, and all of a sudden what I noticed is he's not there anymore. He was wearing a red hoodie. He's not there anymore. And the people around the car, they're all very chaotic.
Now, Farah, what more are police saying about the victim in this case?
Well, Maribel, we know that the victim is a man in his 30s, and what's interesting is that this vehicle that he was getting into actually has California plates. Toronto police wouldn't say today whether this man is from California, whether he's from here. We do know that they were able to speak to his sister who lives in Toronto, but they're not releasing his name as of yet. Meanwhile, they are still looking for 2 suspects. They haven't released a description of them yet, but if anyone has seen anything or has any surveillance video, they're asking them to reach out and contact them.
All right, Farah, thank you for this. When we come back, Juneteenth is marked here in Toronto with a sit-in outside Toronto Police Headquarters.
It is important for us to come out and advocate and stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the South, as well as advocate for Indigenous, Black women, trans women, and every other person that's been oppressed in the system.
The protest has now made its way to Nathan Phillips Square. We'll take you there live next. An animal rights activist was killed at a protest outside a Burlington meat processing plant this morning. Halton police say the victim, a woman in her 60s, was killed when she was hit by a transport truck. The incident happened at Fearman's Park on Harvester near Appleby Line. The plant has long been the site of animal rights protests. Many activists gather at the entrance gate and give water to the pigs in the trucks waiting to get into the plant. There's no word on whether charges have been laid. Still ahead, we'll take you to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where Juneteenth is being marked with controversy ahead of a Donald Trump rally.
But when the president announced he was coming, that really was baffling on one hand and disgusting on the other, because you, as president, you should know this is one of the most sacred, secular civil days for African Americans.
But first, serious allegations are leveled against the Canadian Hockey League by players who say they were abused. We'll speak to their lawyer about the horrific accusations next. A 155-year-old day of celebration is being marked across North America and right here tonight. Today is Juneteenth, the emancipation of African Americans from slavery. It's a day that's taken on renewed focus because of recent incidents of anti-Black racism and police violence against people of color. Ali Chiasson is live tonight at Nathan Phillips Square. And Ali, I can see that one of the demonstrations is still going on behind you.
That's right, Marivelle. Today was supposed to wrap up at 6 o'clock, but as you can tell, there are still things happening here. There are still speakers to get to here at Nathan Phillips Square. Hundreds and hundreds of people came out today for Juneteenth to support Black Lives Matter as well and their demands. Have a listen. They used their voices, and paint rollers to spell it out.
It's time to disarm the police. It's time to dismantle the police. The Toronto Police Services budget is over $1.1 billion, which is more funding than is allotted for libraries, housing, and shelters combined. We believe that Black communities and all communities deserve better.
Black Lives Matter Toronto says the money should be reinvested like this.
A redirect of a minimum of 50% of the $1.1 billion TPS budget towards the communities that they have devastated.
This sit-in has taken over Bay Street from College down to Queen Street pretty much. It's a peaceful disruption that's full of music and dancing and solidarity, but it's their message that rings the loudest.
It is important for us to come out and advocate and stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the South, as well as advocate for Indigenous, Black women, trans women, and every other person that's been oppressed in the system.
We are here united together.
In the United States, June 19th, or Juneteenth, celebrates the end of slavery. Its origins go back over 150 years, and today it takes on greater significance across North America as protests and awareness about anti-Black racism grow.
I think it's important for me specifically, but for all of us as allies to the Black community. And I think it takes all of our voices to come together in order to support and move this society to a more equal and equitable society. So it's important for me to be here on behalf of them because that's what they need.
We are here because all Black lives matter. Disarm, defund, dismantle, abolish, defund, disarm, dismantle, abolish.
So Juneteenth today kicks off another busy weekend in Toronto for rallies and events. I'll send it back to you, Marivelle.
Ali, thank you. Explosive allegations of abuse in the Canadian Hockey League have emerged in a class action lawsuit spearheaded by former NHL player Dan Carcillo. Carcillo, who was born in King City, played in the Ontario Hockey League with the Sarnia Sting and Mississauga Ice Dogs from 2002 to 2005. He, along with Garrett Taylor, who played in the Western Hockey League, filed a statement of claim alleging several incidents of physical and sexual abuse in the junior hockey leagues. None of the allegations has been proven in court. James Sayce is the attorney representing the former players, and he joins me now. Thanks for your time, Mr. Sayce.
Thank you for having me.
So the allegations in the statement of claim are extremely disturbing. Can you provide us with some examples?
Well, I mean, Mr. Carcillo and Mr. Taylor had a rough go. They had different experiences from one another. Mr. Carcillo describes older players urinating on him, him being trapped in the team bus, naked, while bodily fluids were poured on him through the vents, being stuck in that bus bathroom with 7 or 8 other boys. He describes being forced to bob for apples in a bucket filled with other boys' bodily fluids. It goes on and on and on. Truly horrifying stuff. Mr. Taylor had a different type of experience where, he was forced to fight other boys in practice when he was 17 years old. Sent by the coach to go and just physically beat up other kids to increase the intensity level of the practices.
In terms of Dan Carcillo and Garrett Taylor, what prompted them to speak out and come forward after all these years?
I think courage. I mean, they're not the only guys to start telling their stories either. These stories are coming out more and more and more. It used to be that the culture of silence in junior hockey was so pervasive that, once every few years, something would come out publicly. But this is really something that stayed behind closed doors, and people didn't talk about much maybe 10 or 20 years ago to a certain extent. And now more and more of these stories are coming out. And I think that Dan and Garrett are two examples of guys who feel empowered now to be able to speak about what happened, because they want others to be able to share their stories too. I mean, there's a lot to be said for the positive psychological impact of sharing your story. And I think that that's what's motivating them. The other thing that's motivating them is that they recognize too, this doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be this way. So kids playing in the leagues in 2021, 2022, and so on, shouldn't have to go through this. So by airing their grievances, by telling their stories, they're hoping change, and they're hoping for more oversight and accountability, really.
What's your sense of whether things might take this time around and this change that your clients are hoping for will actually take root?
Well, this is the first lawsuit of its kind that I'm aware of. So, we're going to be seeking to change things through the courts. So, I'm a class actions lawyer, and I believe in the class action system to modify behavior of large systems, governments, large companies, etc., when they haven't been motivated to change through, I guess, soft factors. A large piece of litigation like this can be quite motivating.
And it'll be a case we're going to be very interested in following. Mr. Stace, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Now, an emailed statement from the Canadian Hockey League says, quote, "We have not been served with any court documents and therefore have no comment at this time."
Of Black Lives Matter.
Liberal Member of Parliament Marwan Tabera in Guelph today for a court hearing on a series of criminal charges. The Kitchener area MP was arrested in April for assault, break and enter, and criminal harassment. He was taken to task for keeping quiet about the charges. But CBC News has learned the Liberals have previously investigated Tabera for alleged misconduct. Ashley Burke has the story.
The Liberal Party approved Marwan Tabera to run in the 2019 election, even though it had internally investigated the MP for sexual harassment. CBC News spoke to sources with knowledge of the claims. They requested to be anonymous over fears of being blacklisted by the party. They said the Liberals looked into detailed allegations of Tabera's misconduct dating back to the 2015 election, claims that included inappropriate touching and unwelcome sexual comments directed at a female staffer. Those allegations were reported to the party multiple times over the past 5 years, but one source claims the government did nothing about it until recently. CBC News has confirmed the party's investigation determined that some of the allegations were substantiated. Despite this, the party's Greenlight Committee allowed Tabera to run for a second term, a decision that took the committee more than 6 months to come to, which is an unusually long time for an incumbent who has already been vetted. Tabera's office has no comment, and for its part, the Liberal Party says it has a respectful workplace policy in place to prevent harassment, and that the policy states the Liberals can't confirm or comment on complaints for confidentiality reasons. The party also won't say if Tabera faced any consequences, but what is known is that he was allowed to run for a second term as an MP and is now facing criminal charges, all under a Prime Minister who has had a zero-tolerance policy for these kinds of allegations in the past. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Trudeau was asked about Tabera's case, as well as the standard being applied when there are misconduct allegations involving his MPs. Have a listen to what the Prime Minister had to say.
We put in place rigorous processes, rigorous training, and rigorous procedures to follow in any case of complaints or allegations, and those steps are always followed. We bring in professionals to evaluate the case, to go through the processes in a responsible and rigorous way. We make sure that the conclusions are respected and followed, any recommendations made are implemented, and of course we ensure that we're respecting the confidentiality of the process, which is an integral part of those processes, and that confidentiality is why I can't say much about this particular case, other than to say that we have processes in place that are always followed rigorously and respected.
The year-and-a-half prison ordeal for 2 Canadians in China could now last much longer. Today, Beijing charged them with espionage. Catherine Cullen has more on those charges and the reaction here in Canada.
对加拿大籍被告人迈克尔斯帕福。
It is bad news in the cases of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. Already, it's been 5 months since Canadian officials could visit them in prison. Now they are both charged with spying for state secrets and intelligence. A spokesperson for China's foreign ministry was asked today by a Canadian reporter if the men could be punished with a life sentence or even death.
我不回答假设性的问题。
Okay, I don't answer hypothetical questions. This is just a public prosecution, and it is not yet sentenced.
It's still widely believed to be retaliation for Canada's arrest of Meng Wanzhou. The Chinese telecom executive is facing fraud charges in the U.S. Just last month, Meng's attempt to have her extradition stopped was rejected by a Canadian court.
We will continue to stand strong and firmly on the return of the 2 Michaels.
Canada has long insisted the release of the 2 men is a top priority. Today, the Prime Minister defended his efforts.
On top of the public positioning that we're always very firm on, there is also plenty of action behind the scenes in very direct and firm ways.
But it will be harder to get the 2 men out of China now that the trial process has begun, says this former ambassador.
It's all preordained. We know in China that once you are formally charged, you are found guilty 99.9% of the time.
Saint-Jacques is among those who say it's time for Canada to get tougher with China, though China has shown it's not afraid to retaliate against Canadian businesses or citizens when angered. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
A stark warning tonight from the World Health Organization. It says as many countries lift pandemic restrictions and people around the world grow tired of lockdowns, the disease itself is surging. More than 150,000 new cases of COVID-19 were reported worldwide Thursday. That's a new daily high, according to the WHO. In Ontario, the numbers have been heading in a much different direction, with 178 new cases reported. It is the 6th day in a row that number has been below 200. The U.S. has the worst outbreak of any country in the world. More than 2 million Americans have been diagnosed with COVID-19. Florida and Arizona are reporting their biggest daily increases in cases since the pandemic began. Speaking of Florida, the return of pro sports leagues have hit a hurdle. The NHL's Tampa Bay Lightning have closed their facility because 3 players and 1 staff member have tested positive for COVID-19. The team says the players are self-isolating and are asymptomatic. Also in Florida, 5 players and 3 staff members with baseball's Philadelphia Phillies have tested positive for coronavirus. They had been in spring training at the club's facility in Clearwater. The Toronto Blue Jays train in nearby Dunedin. The outbreak comes as more players are allowed to work out at team facilities as negotiations for the start of the season continue. Global Medic and Hydro One teamed up today to pack family emergency kits for Indigenous communities across Ontario. They'll go to remote areas hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic.
The very first thing we want to do is make sure folks have soap to wash their hands, because that's the best way of stopping the virus. The second thing we wanted to do is make sure folks had face masks, face coverings, so when they're out in public, they would be able to cover up to prevent the spread of the virus. We added in a solar light, and then the other most important items that we added in are all the basic staple products, lentils and beans and barley and grains and rice.
Premier Doug Ford visited the site today to support the initiative. The team packed 10,000 kits being distributed to more than 80 First Nations communities. Due to the pandemic, it's become even harder for some to access food, hygiene items, and personal protective equipment. Each kit has enough supplies to last a family a few weeks. Okay, Colette, bracing for humidity levels this weekend.
Yeah, and that's what we need to do. Brace for it, prepare for it. You need to keep water handy all the time when we have conditions like this. And it's so typical that tomorrow is our summer solstice. You know, it's the first day of summer, and we have thunderstorms. We've got heat warnings. Here we go, right? Here are the current temperatures. 27 degrees at the moment, 26 in Oshawa. A little cooler in Hamilton. St. Catharines coming in at 29. Then we factor in those higher dew points, the moisture content of our air. Humidex values, then they go up towards the mid-30s for Toronto at 34 and St. Catharines at 34. The others are a little cooler, but they won't be into the weekend. And that's why Environment Canada has issued the heat warning. So the areas you see here in this kind of bright pink, Eastern Ontario, we're already into the heat warnings, and Southwestern Ontario has been added as well. So for Saturday and Sunday, and this may well get extended into Monday too, where we're going to find those humidex values getting close to about 40. Then the other thing we have going on are some of these thunderstorms that popped up this afternoon and still in play. They'll be weakening though, but where you see the areas in red is where I really want to draw your attention, because that's where we have the severe thunderstorm warning. So it's that lake breeze, that convergence as it comes together off the lakes with the daytime heating. That's where those cells pop up, and they don't move much, so you get some very heavy downpours. You get some localized flooding. I've put this up towards 7, so just coming up, you can see how the models will take these down. With the daytime heating, the sun setting towards 9, they just dissipate. And then what happens tomorrow? Same kind of conditions, so likely by tomorrow afternoon, we'll see this happening once again, so just watch for the same areas likely getting hit by these. Some small hail possible, and certainly some damaging winds. That risk is there. Into Sunday, that's when we could see some more widespread showers and thunderstorms as a weak cold front. It's not really going to do much. It might bring the dew points down a little bit as that comes in. It should be pretty late day for the city though, so for Father's Day and making plans, just do things through the morning and into the afternoon. Then the evening, things get a little dicier there. Your overnight temperatures, they're getting closer to 20 degrees for the overnight lows. They're not really that low. And certainly our highs are high when you're talking 30, 31 degrees. So there you go. It may look like that on the thermometer. It's going to feel closer to 40, Maribel. And that's why people do really need to kind of take it easy when we have heat like this.
Yeah, got to watch for that. Thanks a lot, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cities in the U.S. mark Juneteenth, commemorating the end of slavery in 1865. In Orlando, a silent sign-holding vigil was held. Demonstrators displayed the names of Black people who died while in police custody. Atlanta's Centennial Olympic Park also hosted a large gathering, participants there paying tribute to nonviolent civil rights era protests. But it's a different scene in Tulsa. We'll take you there next. Mass demonstrations are marking Juneteenth in the U.S. June 19th is recognized as the date in 1865 when slavery ended in the States. This year, it's taken on added significance due to the deaths of Black people at the hands of police. Stephen D'Souza has more from New York.
The anniversary of Juneteenth is seen as celebrating the end of slavery. But for many people who have come out to protest in the streets of New York, what usually is a day of celebration takes on added meaning given all of the events we've seen over the last month or so. And so one of the messages people here want to deliver is that while they are celebrating the end of slavery, the effects of that are still being felt today, and they still don't feel free.
Juneteenth, are we really free? We're fighting police, we're fighting injustices, systemic racism, institutional racism. We're fighting all that stuff. And we're here protesting because it's important. You know, everybody has to understand. Until Black lives matter, all lives don't matter.
It's a new day. It's 2020 and we're still fighting for something. So we're here to be heard and, you know, the fight continue on until we're satisfied, until we're also given that respect and that level of love and peace and just being equal. We come a long way, but we've still got a long way to go.
There are dozens of events like this taking place in New York City alone and of course across the country. And we spoke with one woman who brought her children here because she felt it was important they learn about what's taking place here today.
Well, I think it was always significant, but in this moment, I think what's different about this Juneteenth is that it has broader recognition beyond just the Black community. So I think that's the point of it taking on greater significance. You know, and it was really important for me to bring my children because I want them to remember being here, because I do think we're at a turning point where we can really hopefully move the needle on the anti-Black racism.
One of the common themes we're hearing on the streets is that of unity, that people need to come together because there's still a long road ahead. And as you can see, the movement is far from done. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Donald Trump is set to hold a campaign rally tomorrow in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was originally planned for today, but was rescheduled because of widespread criticism. Still, many say the president's actions and words are reopening old wounds in a city with a traumatic past. Susan Ormiston is in Tulsa tonight.
Juneteenth is a combination of June and 19th, a celebration of the end of slavery more than 150 years ago. But here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, particularly poignant because this area used to be a hugely thriving Black business community until in 1921, a white mob attacked, burned businesses, put thousands out of their homes, and killed over 300 people. Across the street here is an old historic church, and the pastor here said Trump choosing this weekend to come to Tulsa to relaunch his campaign was the wrong time and the wrong place.
When the president announced he was coming, that really was baffling on one hand and disgusting on the other, because you, as president, you should know this is one of the most sacred secular civil days for African Americans.
Trump yesterday even took credit for making Juneteenth famous. Another insult to the people who've been celebrating here every year on this day. But some people say that all the attention on Tulsa has actually raised the profile of the racial massacre here and the efforts for Tulsa to come to grips with it.
On the attention of Juneteenth, Black Wall Street, all of that into one. The attention is coming to this community in all aspects. So that's a positive thing that will help amplify what's going on in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Across town, Trump supporters are already lined up for that rally tomorrow night. Tens of thousands expected in this deeply Republican state, seemingly impervious to the threats of spreading coronavirus, jamming all those people inside an arena. Here it will be festival time most of the evening, but police are still on alert. Curfew imposed last night was lifted tonight after President Trump spoke directly to the mayor of Tulsa. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
When we come back, Meet the woman behind the panda costume who's making birthdays in quarantine a little more special.
I love the idea. I drove to Kingston to get my own suit and then started visiting friends' kids and then open it up to the whole neighborhood.
Throughout the pandemic, Renee Prue has been dressing up as a panda, making birthdays special for kids who can't celebrate in the usual way.
Kids love it, especially the little ones. They absolutely love it. The parents too. They get in with photos too with the panda. Everyone just seems to really love panda. Happy birthday to you. I have to give a shout out to my Aunt Janet. She, aka Nana Panda, she originally had a panda costume for her grandson's birthday. I love the idea. I drove to Kingston to get my own suit and then started visiting friends' kids and then open it up to the whole neighborhood. You know, the kids were just so overwhelmed with joy, and they told me that they couldn't do anything for their birthday and they were so disappointed. And then I show up and the parents tell me that it made their day. So that just, it just makes my day too.
It's absolutely excellent. I mean, in current conditions, when you cannot have a big party, this is just amazing to have the panda come and help us celebrate.
I heard it's Tate's birthday today. Is it your birthday? Yeah. Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 4. It must be difficult for kids right now. They can't see their friends. You know, they're stuck inside most of the day. They can't go to school, all that kind of stuff. So I'm probably helping out with their mental health as well, having a panda come to their house.
Kudos to Renee, Colette, because in this weather, that suit's gonna get pretty warm.
That's a good point. Yes, I want the panda to come to my house.
I know.
That's an awesome idea. I love that. Absolutely. So many amazing people bringing out the best at folks. I love it. I wanted to leave you tonight. I want to actually show you what's going on the radar, because we do still have some active weather here, and you can see I put the lightning strikes on, these little yellow strikes. You can see here what's going on still. Some heavy downpours in here, and it's that lake breeze convergence we're getting between the lower Great Lakes and what's happening with Lake Huron, and we're likely going to see this coming right back at us tomorrow in some of the same spots as well. So just be mindful of that. You're having a beautiful day, you know, in the city, sunshine, you wouldn't know it's happening, but if you are going to be doing any traveling or you live in these communities, just be aware.
Right. We've come through a lot so far, so we'll make it. Thanks, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight at 11 after the National. Have a great night, everyone.